Hi, this is Sherry St. Marie with Real Conversations with Sherry St. Marie. And so I appreciate you showing up live and also listening afterwards to the recording. I decided to do this one today because it's a big topic, right? Forgiving the really hard things. And I'm in my 50s, so I've had, half century of experiencing living and lots of great things. I do not present myself as an expert, so please understand that. A lot of what I do as a teacher, a speaker, an author, a broadcaster, a coach, a seminar creator is I present ideas and topics. I talk to tons and tons of people over time of wide range. And a lot of that fills into this real conversation. So there's two things I do here with Real Conversations with Sherry St. Marie. Sometimes I'm it and I'm having a conversation with you. And it is me being the teacher, let's say, or the presenter of ideas. And people might chat or they might not chat. This topic is interesting. So I will make that note for everybody. This topic, I got more private DMs than any other Real Conversations with Sherry St. Marie I have done. And I respect and I understand that. So when I am doing these Real Conversations, you certainly are welcome to do the live chat if you want to. I am big on the LinkedIn platform, so I have to also respect privacy and understanding. I work with a lot of executives. I work with a lot of people who are an employee of somebody, where they are not free to be able to ask a question or make a statement. And so I will respect that always on any of the platforms that I'm on. So you can always send me a direct message. The easiest place to do that is on LinkedIn. If you see one of my topics on Real Conversations and you want to ask and you don't want to participate, hey, how are you doing? Thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate that. I am international because of a lot of you fabulous people. And I don't care about that for myself. I care about it just we're reaching around the world, which is super exciting. Because I have some all kinds of different people showing up today, and some watch in private mode, and I get that and I respect that. I will also say I am from the United States, and why I say that on this broadcast and it will stay on YouTube is just so that you understand that is what my experience is. So I'm not meaning to talk so ignorantly about just the United States or whatever, but I also cannot speak about everywhere because this is where I primarily have lived and had my experiences. So I just share that with you for only that reason. When I talk about the world and forgiveness in the world, a lot of different places around the world have different concepts of forgiveness. And so I do understand that. Part of what I will focus on is US, right? Because that is my experience and kind of how we get taught and socialized here. But I think forgiveness is a beautiful topic all across the board. I will certainly tell you I am not somebody who has been skilled at it my whole life. I will tell you when I was growing up, I had a really hard time understanding certain forgivenesses, especially if they were for really hard things. That was tough for me. I need to share that with you because you understand by the end of our talk today, I have grown. And I have a different concept and understanding. One of the very beginning, hey, how are you, Gerard? Thank you so much. We had a beautiful conversation yesterday. I might talk about some of it, but I won't share exactly, what, when, and whatever. But thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. A lot of it is that we can grow when we share and help each other of different experiences and understandings. And so back to the beginning part, just to understand of where I've kind of grown along, is that I certainly had a hard time as a teenager because I had a difficult background, and I don't need to talk about it on every broadcast, but just so that you understand who's watching, I've had some severely egregious things that could be unforgivable forever, and I could give you a resume about that. I only say that to you because I want you to be able to watch and demonstrate what I chose to do for myself. So this is just an offering. If you would like to see some of these transactions and transformations and pieces happening over time, that's the point. Because if I come on here and tell you, oh, I have absolutely no unforgiveness in my heart, I have very little because it matters to me a lot that I don't hold it, that I'm not carrying it, that I am a big heart and I'm a big love and give. That's my natural state. And if I have a lot of unforgiveness or pieces of unforgiveness, it changes that energy a little bit. And we will come into lots of different comments that people are putting into the post. So I'll come back to that. But here is the point in the beginning part. I at least was taught or we model, whether it by social regards or our family, because family teaches you about forgiveness and unforgiveness, right? Religion teaches us about forgiveness and unforgiveness, but we don't socially talk about it so much in a modern time and with modern evolution and growth over what we have seen and learned. And that's the real conversation today. Okay, so this is the part. When I was growing up, one of the main concepts that were taught was you forgive for the other person. That was taught, I can't tell me how thousands of times, I'm sure lots of you have heard that, you forgive for the other person, right? We say that. Excuse me, you forgive for yourself. I said it backwards even in my, I have a hard time with that. You forgive for yourself, not the other person. That's what we're taught. And as a teenager and as a young 20s, I had a tough time with that because I had some, as I said, pretty egregious things and criminal things, right? And I was like, I don't understand that. And why should I let the person off? Because they haven't, here's the thing. We do conditional forgiving. We do conditional forgiving. If the person, even if it's a smaller offense, apologizes to me, changes their behavior, doesn't do it again, then I can forgive them and we can be okay. But the problem with that concept is you give all of the power and control to the other person. And depending if it's a big offense, is a lot of what we're talking about today, you give the power to the person who is most likely, statistically, not going to change, no matter what you do. And we don't have the ability to change another human. So I have spent enough decades, trying and whatnot as a, former wife and whatever. We try to help people. Teachers try to help people change. I am in my 50s, as I told you, and why that matters is I am absolutely to the place of understanding I cannot change one other human being, no matter what, not if they're my student, not if they're my coaching client, not if they are my partner, not if they are my neighbor, not if they are my family. I cannot change a single other soul, nor can you. We can try to do different things and strategies and pieces, but I think why that matters in forgiveness is understanding and super respecting. I own my one only life. That's it. I can encourage if I want to. I'm not going to push things on somebody else. I'm going to just be who I am and offer if you'd like, great, and that's super. And I'm going to stay in what I can control and where I own my life instead of putting myself onto other people. Thank you for the comment of, progress doesn't need conditions, 100% for sure. So here's where I have grown to and learned and where I offer you. I think one of the pieces on forgiveness is this whole idea of we need to switch the focus off of the offense and the person who did the thing. And that's exactly what you're talking about there. To say, yes, they did the thing. Yes, it was unacceptable. There's no question about it, right? But when we put our focus there, we create a bond with that person or event. Listen to me, because this might upset you for a little bit. We create a bond with that situation or that offense, and it ties us to them, an external person and situation, and you aren't freeing yourself. You aren't letting it go. You are tied to the person. And I know you'd argue with me, but that was horrendous. I don't want to be, connected to them. But that is what we do when we are in unforgiveness, because that is what you're thinking about. That's what's ruminating in your mind. That is the piece that is not able to free yourself. And so that's why my entire talk today is this flip on. We are not saying we're responsible for any of it. So please get me straight. I am not saying we are responsible for any of the offenses or any of the wrongs or any of the pieces. I am just explaining to you, we have the power to be able to choose to free ourselves, to let it go, to be able to work through the part. Doesn't mean it's not easy. It can be easy or it can be hard depending on how you want to do it. And some would argue with me about that. I'm sure Raj is exactly what he's talking about. I could choose to just decide to let it go, no matter what the offense is. I could choose to decide that. Or what I see a lot is I could carry it for 10 years I could ruin my own life because I cannot get over it. I can't free myself. I can't let it be gone. You have both choices. So one takes 2 seconds. And, depending on what the thing is, you might be able to do the 1 second. And the other part, you might have to do the work. I've been on both places. So here's a demonstrated example, which is big and hard. I had a boyfriend when I was in high school and he was in college that unfortunately got killed in a drunk driving accident. And his best friend was the driver. That was super hard for me at 17 years old to not feel for my boyfriend and his family. This, oh my gosh, like it was a tragic situation, no question about it, because it was all, 19-year-old men that were, making some thrill decisions at the time. His family, my boyfriend's family, was one of the very first people that I saw. I'm not saying everybody needs to do this, so please just listen. I'm just saying this was my experience of they decided in that moment to say, we are not pressing further charges. We are not asking for a harsh sentence. We are choosing, and that was their choice. Those guys made a really bad decision on that night. And for me, my job was to respect his family, right? And to deal with my own pain and my own pieces about it and my own feelings about the person drinking and driving 2 weeks later after Steve died. But that was my first experience with seeing, oh my gosh, somebody can take something so massively huge as their own child being removed from this earth and make a decision about how they feel about it and what they want to do and how they want to, as best they can, deal with the tragedy and move on in the way they wanted to. Okay. And so for me, that was my first opening of, wow, oh my gosh. And guess what? They understood nothing was going to bring Steve back. Nothing was going to bring their child back. And so that was an incredibly profound moment in my life about just this example of forgiving the really hard things. Because what they could have chosen was, parents to be bitter and harsh and broken forever. They could have chosen that, and anybody could understand. They chose instead to say, gosh, of course they would never choose the situation for their child or anybody. But again, they made the decision based on self-reflection and how do we best want to model to ourselves, our community, our family, what we're doing, given this is where we're at. Okay. So I only say that in terms of me turning and opening to, we could choose to decide we are in the mode of being offended all the time. Lots of people do this, some of them. So thank you, Raj. It was, heartbreaking for sure at the time. And what I have beautifully learned is at the time I was taught you have one love of a lifetime. I beautifully was taught after that, you certainly can have more than one love of a lifetime. It definitely was tragic for his family and everything, but he was a huge lover of life, for sure. And Steve, I know for a fact, because I knew him well enough and long enough, that's exactly what he would have wanted. He would have wanted to his parents to love and heal and go on. He would have wanted to his best friend that was making that decision at the time, don't put a harsher piece on him. He will learn. He's 19. He would have wanted and did say to me, go on, live your life, live fully. And so that is the part that I can also share with some of this. I understand. So again, we can be in the spot of choosing, even in everyday, not such big things, to be, a lot of people do this, can be in this place of unforgiveness. So I can choose to be offended every time I go anywhere, in public, online, out my door. Any of us could choose that. And there are some people who do that. And there are some people who do that in order to protect themselves. So I understand an awful lot about social behavior and psychological behavior over all my lovely life experiences, beautiful and difficult. So some people do that as a protection of themselves. You can see that where they're even offended if you touch the cart they thought they were taking at the grocery store. I just choose not to. be offended over most things. And it has to do from a place of where I have grown from. There are certainly things of people, Sean is saying, if someone does something wrong and unforgivable, move on. Yes. I mean, that's an easier thing to do, right? But why I'm doing this broadcast is there are so many people that are really hurting over an unforgiveness piece that they are not able to move past. So those of you who are able to forgive easy often, that is beautiful and wonderful, and keep doing that and keep sharing and keep showing that to people. Again, a lot of this piece is for the people who have the tougher time in being able to do that. And so I want to be able to share different pieces that will help people do this job that I'm talking about. So here is the example. The other thing that we sometimes learn is you need the other person and able to do the work. That's what I know in the work that I do professionally causes an awful lot of pain for people. Meaning that, here's an example, like I need my mother or my father to change so that I can be okay and heal. This is why I want to do a different broadcast. You don't. It'd be nice if that happened, right? It'd be great if they realize, I'm so incredibly sorry. This is what I did. I'm happy to help you heal. That'd be great. But it doesn't always happen. And sometimes you're never going to get it. So you keep yourself in pain when you are expecting to be able to get your healing from that other person who has done the piece that feels incredibly painful, rightfully so. And you feel this unforgiveness about. And so what I want to help people understand is you don't need that other person. What you need to do is, it is really a pulling back, and it is a self-reflection, and it is a self-examination, and it is a empowering thing to be able to realize that. So please understand, anything about the word forgiveness does not mean it is okay. That's where most people get caught up, at least in the United States, that if I forgive you, it means what you did to me is okay. I guarantee you, the people that I have absolutely, completely forgiven, what they did is not okay. It is not okay by any means of any regard. If I put them in a social court, I can guarantee you it is not okay. And several of them, if I put them in a criminal court, it is not okay. However, that's probably a lot of the first understanding for somebody, is that it doesn't mean it's okay when I forgive you, or I forgive the person, or I choose to be easily forgiving and often forgiving. I do that because I choose to be happy, whole, healthy, and free from the bondage of unforgiveness. So a lot of people will argue with me, and somebody made a great point and asked a question about, do you really have to forgive? No, you don't. Of course you don't. You're allowed to be unforgiving your entire life if you'd like to. You're allowed to be unforgiving if you'd like to. And a lot of people will argue with me and say, but my unforgiveness doesn't affect me or anybody else. Okay. I can just tell you personally, when I have done the work and gotten to the place where I have forgiven lots of the pieces and things, I am lighter. I am happier. My heart and my walls are wide open. I have been able to go on and have an amazing, beautiful life. And that is the difference. Rather than being in pain that I feel I cannot get out of, or somebody else cannot get out of. And so that is the reason to do some of the work. And a lot of the pieces don't have to be huge, as a couple of the examples that I have given. Some of them can be lighter. So an example we often get into, I want to introduce some words that we don't often talk about, but they are like, let's talk about them. So they are words of bitterness. Some people are just bitter. I don't want to be bitter. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be a woman who spends the rest of my life churning about, oh yeah, well, you think that's bad. That's not who I am. That's not at all who I am. And so I don't want to participate, and I don't need to. So here's another just simple example of the bitterness. People that are doing the bitterness in their home, especially now that we're, tighter circumstances and spending more time together. I'm hearing an awful lot of the bitterness and I can't get over it. And particularly if the bitterness is about the cup that's next to the sink. You didn't put the cup away next to the sink. You didn't wash it and put it back in the cupboard. That really isn't about the cup, And that really is about something bigger and different that's not okay with the particular person. And you happen to just be the person that they are having either the tantrum, the tirade, the control on and against. And you can choose not even to participate in that. So the person can be saying to you, you left the cup there again. I had just done the dish, whatever the conversation is, You don't even have to get tied into the situation. You can do two different things if you want to. You can wash the cup if you want to, or you can, even if you want to, smile at the person and go do what you need to be doing and wash the cup when you'd like to wash the cup, because it isn't this showdown of bitterness and trying to make the other person wrong. The majority of unforgiveness on smaller things is this right fighting. I don't need to be a right fighter anymore. You can be right. I'd rather be happy. That's just where I'm at. So you can be right. Yep, I should have put the cup away. And you can be right. I didn't park the car in the exact right thing. And you can be right about I didn't take the smartest lane to get to the airport. You can be right about all that. I don't care at all. It's perfectly great. And that's a choice, because I don't care to get into this bitterness and bantering and things like that. Life is absolutely about choice, Sean. There's no question about it. And that's exactly where I'm at, where I choose to have the choice part of I'm not going to let it tie me up. So a lot of people get stuck in the fact of their choices. And I want to talk about this, where they can't get to that place of understanding. It is about choices because they're so caught up about, but I need what happened to me to be a bigger, significant, let's say in a court of law, I won and you got consequenced or damaged or corrected. That's where they're stuck about the choice piece. I know so many people, sadly, in their 50s who are so caught up on the aggression of life, relationships, and all of the pieces about it. I am in a different place where I go, you want to know something? I am like in the, less than halfway point. I'm not interested in doing any of that stuff anymore. I'm interested in helping people. I'm interested in helping the soul be whole, happy, healthy, free, and enjoy life, whether they're a child, whether they're a teenager, 20s, middle age, any of that, be able to free ourselves. The majority of it, I will put a piece on. Some people will say nobody else can make you feel a certain way. I do not agree with that. So that's not true, because it also allows the people that are the bullies and the aggression and offenders to have full reign and whatever. It is not true. So a person can absolutely make you feel a certain way. You tell that to somebody who's been abused. That's not true. And so I will take that stance publicly right here. So that's an example of this hard to forgive, that abuser person, whatever the circumstance, whether it was violent or emotional or criminal or whatever, that is an example where that is difficult to forgive. That person, I can guarantee you, because I know the stats are 99% of the time, that person is never going to change. That's almost always the statistic. And so that person to change, for you to be able to heal and forgive and whatever is most likely not possible. We could argue those offenses are unforgivable. They are not okay. They are never going to be okay. But the person who has been abused to whatever capacity, whether that's by a parent, boss, somebody randomly, those pieces need to be healed and forgiven. This is part of a real conversation in terms of how do you heal? How do you help yourself? How do you feel comfortable in the world? How do you feel safe in the world? How do you not get triggered in terms of being able to forgive? And so sometimes we get into this humanness of, I need to understand, why did this happen? I'm confused about why? In those cases, in some of those subject areas, sometimes it helps a lot to get yourself educated. So a lot of my different clients that I have worked with, they have become incredibly educated about abusers and what is their situation. Not having to deal with the person, but just so that they understand themselves. What is that dynamic and why is the person that way? And why are they usually not able to recover, and it's incredibly minimal, so that you can heal and get yourself out of that situation. Some of unforgiveness, and people, you can disagree with me all you want to, this is my stance. I do take the stance of, it does not mean that you have to stay in the situation. So I can forgive, anybody can forgive and not stay in the situation. So I am not at all a proponent of just keep forgiving, let the people keep having the offenses on you. Not a big deal. Don't worry about it if it's at work or your personal life or at home. That is not at all my stance. So mine is, you certainly, forgive for your own lightness, forgive for your own self, but you do not have to stay in the situation ever if you choose not to. And there is a piece of boundary about not, I'm going to say this carefully because it's hard in an abuse situation. There's never a place where you have to, because of obligation, keep yourself in a spot where somebody continuously keeps offending, an unforgiveness, or a place where you're needing to forgive. So I am of that stance. I don't care if they're your boss, your family, your neighbor, you don't have to. And that usually, if that's that kind of situation, is healthiest and best for you. And so that's a decision people need to make. I'm not somebody who is going to straight out say you need to leave or not leave or whatever, but I'm saying the piece of power is not continually putting yourself in a place where people are doing things that are highly offensive, hurtful, to the place where you have unforgiveness in your heart. And I think that it doesn't matter if they're your family. A lot of people will argue, and especially decades ago, they're your family, that's it, you're tied forever. No, not when the person is massively offensive repeatedly, and in any category that is not healthy, safe, and okay. Again, it's a decision that people make. You can feel however you want to, but that's my stance on it. Again, when I come into the self-reflection part, so again, we're taking the focus off that other person, and we're going to do the real work on healing ourselves and forgiving, so that we don't have this tar on our heart or these walls built up on our heart. It is coming to the place of reflecting for your own self. I'm not just hurt. So we're going to examine a little bit further what really happened to me, or where am I feeling? And that's the work that a lot of people are uncomfortable doing, is getting into really all of that, whatever the massive offense was, made me feel, let's say the loss of a person, that is absolutely huge. It is this feeling of abandonment, isolation, loneliness, whatever your real feelings are. That's where your work is. That's where your work is, in order to help yourself. If it is a situation where there's absolutely nothing you can do with the other person, or to make it different or better, in that example, to bring the person back, let's say, then it becomes a situation. Why I even mentioned the word forgiveness, right, is sometimes we go through the anger even over the person leaving, even if it's a passing on in life, of an anger at the person for leaving us, right? And that's normal, even though we wouldn't want to. They're our loved one. Of course, we don't really feel that way, but it's part of the process, of at times feeling angry that you've left me, you've abandoned me, I'm having to work on this by myself, we were supposed to do this or that. We understand they didn't mean to. The real work is the self-reflection of understanding, okay, I am now in this situation. What do I need to do to best help and free myself and be able to move on? And of course, I'm not angry at you or unforgiving of you for going. You had to go. We couldn't control that, right? As just an example. Other pieces are, depending on what is the offense or what happened, again, as I'm saying, to learn about the situation. A lot of people find that very empowering. So an example would be, let's say, an abusive boss. Some people will go online and find out and learn everything they can about that situation, a bully boss. There's tons of them. Learn everything that you can about them. If you're feeling like you can't remove yourself at the time because of a paycheck obligations, while you're trying to figure out, how do I find that next situation? Half the time, what I find with the people that I coach and work with in my own experience, where we have the unforgiveness, it is really a matter of thinking you can help the person come to an aha and change their ways, even that bully boss. I will go on record by saying there's almost zero chance you can change the bully boss. They are that way. They are not going to change. That is the way they run their company. It is going to be that way. Almost always you are healthiest and best, and the forgiveness will happen when you remove yourself and you find that the job where you're supposed to be, where your talent and your genius can be used and all of those great things. That is almost always it, because it's a futile energy trying to work in and forgive, and the offenses are still happening and the environment's not good for you. And what we realize in that self-reflection is, I am wasting my gift in this wrong environment or this wrong company or this wrong situation. And so a lot of times it is getting knowledgeable in the self-reflection about what's really going on here and what do I really need to do, you know? And so half the time, here's one that a lot of people don't understand, and that is the majority of offenses are projection. And particularly right now, we are a big projection culture and world at the minute, particularly on social media, but also in person. And so I bring up projection so that you understand people that are feeling in this place where I am having so many things happen, whether it is somebody at home that's disgruntled, whether it is somebody or people at work, or even just out in the world, because people have been screaming at each other from cars at strangers lately. All those people, I would argue, are projecting. So they're projecting what's happening for them and how they're feeling. And it's either a tantrum, you know, or a yuck bomb, I'll say, at others because of how they're feeling. We don't deserve it. It's not fair and good and okay, but we also don't have to accept it at all. And so here's the example that I do. So I had said this in the post, I'll share it with you. There are so many people who road ragers right now. So we're driving down the road and people are screaming from cars. And I've actually myself had it even 3 times in the last couple days. I, instead of before, might have been like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Like, did I switch lanes? Did I forget my signal light? Did I what? Not normally the situation. And so instead, I choose to stay peaceful. It's always my choice. So I choose to stay in my car, peaceful and grounded. What will happen typically is the person is losing their beans in that car, window rolled down, and I am big smile. Why do I do that? It's disrupting. I am staying peaceful. I'm seeing what's happening. It's just a smile and I'm done. I'm not staying on to see, did they get the message? Did I make them more mad when I smiled? Did I what? Because I'm not needing to stay engaged with that situation. I am just grounded, peaceful, up, smile, out, and here I go. The forgiveness part is when I get out of the car and I'm home, right? Where I go, wow, that person must be going through an awful lot of things or have very strong opinions about, usually it's yelling about masks and things and whatever else they're doing. And actually I was in the car by myself all 3 times, but anyway, that's typically what I see people doing the screaming about. When I'm home, it's I can understand that person should not be putting all their opinions and offenses on everybody about every little thing of however you feel about whatever the subject is. But I can also really come to a place of compassion to go, wow, they must have had something happen or repeatedly happen or whatever. So perhaps they've had some family member that had an incredible experience because of whatever happened on the road. Maybe I wasn't even the person. They were just yelling at me because it was a car behind me, you know, where I can just go, wow, there's just a lot going on right now. And I can understand that person because they behave that way. I would assume they don't do it every day. I'm going to take that stance. Maybe they do. But I'm going to take the stance of, wow, they must have been experiencing an awful lot. And I'm sorry about that. And I hope it gets better for them. And I did that by myself in the car, getting out of my car, all at home. Why I did that was not necessarily for them. If it helps them, great. It was for myself because I choose to stay happy, whole, and healthy as best I can. And a lot of people get so caught up into because it's addicting. I would also argue with you, unforgiveness is addicting. You don't often hear people say that, but unforgiveness is addicting. And here's what I mean by that. People that are holding unforgiveness you have to hang on to it, right? Like I have to, like I can't let it go. So if I let it go, I would feel peaceful and different, right? So they will have the unforgiveness and the story in their head ruminating about, oh yeah, remember when that person did this whatever with me, and I'm going to build a story about it, right? So here's a fact. See, she did it again. See, on Tuesday she did it again. Oh yeah, and then she did. Oh yeah. Because I got to hang on to it, and I got to make a story that builds the facts about the thing that makes you, I'm judging you, wrong, and you did this and whatever. And if I put that down, if I put that unforgiveness down, I might forget about it, and that might not be okay. And so people keep holding it. And so when you get up in the morning, you're thinking about, maybe you wake up happy and all of a sudden you're, I got to pick it up. I got to hold the unforgiveness. Like, oh yeah, that's right. Don't go into work because that person did the whatever to you. I got to hold this. I got to hold this. I got to hold this. And maybe I can set it down later at night, but tomorrow I'm going to remember to pick it back up again. And there is hey, Travis, how are you? Thanks for showing up. I appreciate you a lot. You're doing huge things, buddy. Awesome to see you here. Exactly. And the holding it for years. So thank you for saying this. I'm going to bring this up, and thank you for that, Travis. I appreciate it. Listen to me. It is the fact that I do understand whatever happened to you, you didn't deserve. I am not making the point of any of it is, this should be more on the victim. And I don't like that word. I use the word target. Some of us have been targets of things, but it is this vitriol of I got to pick up the unforgiveness, and I can't let it down. And then I become tainted. So guess what? While I'm holding my peace, I'm going into meetings and I'm going into different places where people then experience me different than what my actual spirit is and my actual talents and abilities, because I wear the shield of unforgiveness into the thing. And you say something to me and I will, and Travis, boy, you want to get into this, I would take you down, right? And my carrying of the addictive thing had nothing to do with Travis. He's phenomenal. And I know he's tough enough for me to be able to say that to him. He's fantastic. But it becomes our shield and who we are in a piece. And we like to argue it's not who we are. I'll tell you habitually the addiction of your house when we were physically going out to work. It is addictive because people will leave their house without the unforgiveness because they're going to work, right? Maybe they have an unforgiveness in the house. They go through their day and they might pick up other little unforgivenesses, but, I'm coming back in the driveway. And instead of take the weight of the world off, those are your sacred people inside that house in your space in your home. They do the opposite. I got to pick up the unforgiveness because the person in there did the whatever. So you are conditioning yourself to, I pick up my unforgiveness the minute I get out of bed and that person's next to me or whatever. I'm going to let it go for certain parts. But when I come back into the house at 4:30, I'm going to pick up that piece and I'm going to unforgiveness to this person. You do that for enough years, that is a habit. You do that for even a couple months, that is a habit. Why I care about this is exactly what Travis said. Here's where my heart goes huge to people. It is 100% a shield. There's no question about it. I know people that are amazing people that I have the most wonderful opportunity to be in conversation with and relationships and things. And they have carried something for 10 years. And they have carried it because nobody said some of these things to them, or they didn't have a conversation with somebody that could help them understand it differently, that they then could have let it go. And if they wouldn't have carried that for 10 years, their life would have been so different. They would have been in different relationships and different careers and different pieces had they not carried it. I'm just going to read Travis's comment for 1 second. 100%. So here's the whole thing. All of the unforgiveness is protecting us. So I'm going to explain something to you that might seem odd to people who don't know this part. Unforgiveness is a control tactic. So people who have had a wrong to them, particularly if it was a huge, egregious wrong, we feel like we don't have any control over the situation. And so how we collect and carry control is I get to judge you, the person, or you, the situation, or the thing that happened to me. That gives me control. I feel some control. It's a false sense of control, and it is not good. But it is a false sense of I control this because I control when I'm going to let go. That might seem crazy when you hear it logically, right? But emotionally, we don't understand that. And so I have control when I carry the thing, and nobody gets to tell me when I'm putting down the thing, right? It's a shield. And a lot of us, what we do as humans, if we're any age over about 2, we build these little walls around ourselves that we think are protecting ourselves. And we don't understand. You don't necessarily need them. You just need some good boundaries. That's it. And to forgive is to let the shield down. Right, Travis? So the people who have watched me on different platforms, I have gone through this personally. So I'm talking what I know. I did this over the last, 4.5 years, but a huge chunk of it, 3-4 years ago. It is amazing. And last winter of like all the shields coming down. And I was super scared to do it. Okay. It is amazing what happens to us as we are able to get to this place where you can put the whole shields down. Just because you had one experience with a particular person or situation doesn't make all of that subject matter horrendous. So now I'll give you some examples, right? Just because you had a bad experience with one, let's say male, all males are not the same way, right? Just because you had a difficult situation with one female doesn't mean all females are that way, right? Just because you had one experience in the world, out in general society, doesn't make society all horrendous. And there's nothing out there but people who would do this to me. There are amazing, beautiful, wonderful people out in the world. And that's the part we need the forgiveness about, so that you can freely go enjoy that. So you can freely go enjoy all the people, all the experiences, all of the great stuff. But here's what I also find. The vast majority of teenagers and adults will not do the work to be able to do the forgiveness and to just heal themselves so that they can go on and do the thing. And Travis is exactly right. What we're doing is imprisoning ourselves while we think we are punishing the other person. I can guarantee you they're probably not thinking about you. The person who did the whatever, they're probably not. Because if they're the person that did the thing, especially if it's, huge and egregious, they aren't thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves, because people who can do big egregious things just think about themselves. So that's one thing to think about. The other piece I would like to say is the piece of anger on unforgiveness. There's an anger culture. There is an anger family, where families, I would hear this and go, oh my gosh, where families would go, you've got to stay angry so you don't ever let anybody do that to you again. That is a defense mode. That is a shield, like Travis was talking about. I got to feel angry so that nobody, sorry, I'm going to plug my computer in, so that nobody gets to do that to me again. That is a sad stance, I will say. I don't believe you have to be angry in order to protect yourself. I don't believe you have to be angry so that you don't forgive, or people will do this stance on forgiveness. I will learn how to forgive. I've done that. It feels awesome and whatever, but don't forget. The don't forget is important for certain things, but here's how they really mean don't forget. Forgive, but don't forget. That's how they mean that, instead of how it is meant to be of forgive, but don't forget. And the don't forget is so that you don't have that experience again. So you don't put yourself in that position again. It's meant to be a calm, gentle, because you've processed. It is not meant to be forgive so you don't forget, because this part means you didn't forgive. You are not healed. You are not okay. The greatest thing I want to encourage everybody about is this whole idea of you can free your own self with forgiveness. You don't need the other person. And I think that is the most beautiful power. It is a self-reflection, not on blame of you, but in looking at what actually is happening. And what do I want for myself? And what do I choose to be? I don't choose to carry the bitter cross the whole time. That's for myself. And so I get to be lighter, happier, freer, doing what I want to do with my life. And that is a great place. You can also get to a place where it can be humorous. All these things don't have to be big. So humorous can be the thing. It is actually a little bit humorous sometimes to me to sit back and watch the unforgiveness, because I'm free of it. And it looks a bit comical sometimes. Of like, wow, really? You're going to be bent up about that for 2 days because the person parked in your spot. Like, I don't need it. Like, okay. And it's watching adult tantrums, right? But again, some of it can be easy, even if it's a huge thing. Like the example of Steve's family saying, we're choosing in a tragedy to just say that took them not even a couple minutes of decision between husband and wife and parents of their child. So we can do forgiveness easy, hard, long, fast, sweaty. But the beautiful part is the calm, healthy, happy at the end. Feel free to reach out to me. LinkedIn is the easiest place to get me. I will also keep doing these real conversations. Next week, I have a guest on. They will stay recorded on YouTube. So that is where I'm now putting my classroom of content. And I appreciate every single one of you who shows up. I know everybody's got different thoughts and ideas about forgiveness. I just wanted to share a little bit different perspective than I often hear in our social culture. And I hope that helps you. The best thing in the world is to be able to be free from a lot of that. And so that is the greatest thing that I wish. My real work and interest is the soul of human beings and humanity. So thank you so much. Have an awesome day, everybody.